What's cracking, fish tube? It's me, the Biz. This is Aquatics, professional aquatics with the amateur test. So amateurs, yep, get that professional look. I've got an all-star cast right here, an all-star panel of fish tubers right here, one place, one question answered for you. You don't want to miss this. I know you saw the first simple fish keeping done by Jason Primetime Aquatics. I know you saw the second simple fish keeping done by John Hudson of KG Tropicals. Now it's your turn to get this installment of simple fish keeping done by who else but the Biz, right here, with an all-star cast of fish tubers with one simple question and one question only to be answered. Give me 3 of the hardiest fish in this hobby. That's it. Give me 3 of the hardiest fish in this hobby and why. And I'm not even going to take any more of your time. We're just about to get right to it. The first fish tuber coming up. You already know who it. You don't know. Here it comes. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Carrie with ScienceGal Aquatics, and today I want to help answer a question with Fishy Biz Aquatics. And the question is, what are the 3 hardiest fish that you see in the hobby? And I would have to say the 3 hardiest fish that you see pretty often would be the guppy, the goldfish, and the rosy red minnows. I feel like those 3 are really hardy. You see them often, and they're ones that I've had really good luck with. I would have to say the guppies because I have kept them in so many different ways. I've kept them in small tanks, large tanks, outside, inside, heated, no heat, in community tanks, by themselves in 5-gallon buckets for a time. I've kept them in a couple of different ways, and I feel like they always swim around, they interact with you, they eat, and they reproduce often. So I feel like guppies are really hardy fish. Also goldfish, because I had 2 goldfish for about 16 years, and they lived through all, and I mean all, of my fish keeping mistakes. I kept them in a too small, overcrowded, heated aquarium, and they lived through all of my moves, all my mini apartments, and they still were doing well. And after I took the time out and I researched what I was caring for and I gave them a proper environment, they thrived even more. And I could sit there for hours just watching them swim because their personalities were fantastic and they were so beautiful to watch swim around their tank. But I feel like they were the hardiest, and they lived that long because I took the time out to give them the environment they needed to be hardy. So I think goldfish are a great choice. You just have to give them the right home. Along with the guppies and the rosy red minnows, I didn't have the best luck with the rosy red minnows at first, but once I moved them outside to my goldfish koi pond, and I keep them out there year long through the winter when it's iced over, and the summer when it's 100 degrees outside, and they are always swimming around, reproducing, nipping on all the plants, and they just don't even look like the same fish. They are ginormous compared to what you see in the little feeder fish aquarium at the pet store. But once I gave them the proper environment, they are extremely hardy and a fish that I never thought that I would enjoy so much. So I think out of the fish that I have experience with that you see often, the guppy, the goldfish, and the rosy red minnows are a great hardy fish.
Hey everyone, Dan Connor here with Aquarium Insider, and in today's video we're going over the top 3 most resilient, super tough fish. Alright, so number 1 fish that's super hardy, African cichlids. So I know most of the time we keep them in super tropical tanks, but we found out through a lot of just sort of research we've done and seen and accidents, they handle temperature quite well. They'll handle temperature drops of over 4 to 5 degrees easy. Especially here in Florida when we have them outdoors and temperatures fluctuating 30 from morning to night. Don't see a whole lot of issues, any sort of deaths or issues with those fish, so we like African cichlids for that, plus they tolerate a wide variety of water quality parameters. If you live in, like, you know, the northwest part of the world where you have softer water, you still might need to use a stabilizer, but generally speaking, they're a super hardy fish. Next up is going to be barbs. So cherries, albinos, tiger barbs, albino tigers, green tigers, black rubies. We've had a lot of success keeping those here and not a ton of issues with them. I don't see they can handle typically wide variety of temperature, huge amount of water, different types of water, different types of tank mates. I mean, obviously tiger barbs is going to be a little more voraciously put other fish in there, but generally speaking, they're still at least a really hardy fish. And number 3, which is kind of like a weird thing, a little bit limited space where you can put them in, is bikers. So we started bringing in bikers maybe a few years ago. We've kept the Delhaises, the Senegals, maybe 2 or 3 other kinds. I don't see hardly anything that would kill that fish. That prehistoric fish seems to just handle pretty much anything we throw at it. All right, so everyone, that's my top 3 hardiest fish. Thanks.
Hey everyone, my name is Zenzo from Tazawa Tanks. Now the question that I was asked is, what 3 fish do I think are the hardiest fish to keep, or the hardiest aquarium fish? Now a lot of you that know me probably will think, oh, Zenzo's just going to say, you know, African cichlids, like my Malawi peacocks or mbuna or something like that, or some of my hardy Tanganique and shell dwellers or something. But I actually gave this question a lot of thought and thought about reasons why a fish could be hardy, just beyond the overall physical characteristics of the fish and how tough it can be. I'm thinking about, you know, most people in fish keeping and beginner fish keepers and stuff like that. Now the first one's probably going to surprise a lot of you, and that is the betta fish, Betta splendens. The main reason is that betta fish has a very unique organ in its body called a labyrinth organ. That labyrinth organ actually allows the betta to draw oxygen from the surface of the water, from the air. It can breathe air essentially, rather than only being able to get dissolved oxygen through the water column, passing the water over the gills like most other fish. So this one fact, this one characteristic of the betta fish makes it a fish that is easier to keep for a lot of newer fish keepers. So it allows you to learn and make a couple of mistakes along the way and not have your fish die, because if something goes wrong with the water parameters, it can still go up to the surface and get a gulp of fresh air. So that's the reason why I chose the betta splendens to be on the list of one of the top 3 hardiest aquarium fish. The second fish that I'm going to put on my list is another fish that you probably have no idea that I was going to put it on here, and that is the guppy. Now you might think, oh, a guppy's a small, delicate, pretty looking fish. It's not that hardy. Well, the guppy actually can live in a lot of different water parameters. It can live in fresh water all the way up to brackish water. Guppies have actually been prolific around the world because humans have released them, and they are pretty much in bodies of water all around the world, so they are very hardy. The other great thing about the guppies, beyond the fact that they can live in different water parameters, is they are what's considered to be a live bearer. A live bearer is a fish that gives birth to live fish, live babies that come out, rather than most fish that will lay an egg and those eggs hatch in some form or another. They give birth to live fish and they breed very readily. And pretty much if you have a guppy, tank going on, you're always going to have some activity in there, and you're always going to have fresh guppies coming out. Now the last fish on my list is very similar to the second fish, and that is the molly. Now the molly is also a live bearer. The difference is that a molly is a lot larger than the guppy. So it has a much larger body. It's probably 4 or 5 times the size, meaning that it can go in a lot of different community aquariums and not have an issue with getting out competed for food because it's big and fast, or big enough and fast enough, and it's big enough to not get predated on by other fish or most other fish. So the fact that it's bigger, a little bit tougher, a little bit more robust, and the ace up its sleeve is it too can be in different water parameters, from freshwater all the way to full saltwater. That's right, it can live in a full marine environment. I've seen them in saltwater tanks. I've kept them in saltwater tanks. I keep mine in brackish water right now. So they can be in anything from freshwater to full-on saltwater and everything in between. They're a live bear, they've got a robust body, and they can take a lot of different water parameters. So that's my top 3. Probably surprised many of you that know my channel. But anyway, it was a lot of fun, and thanks for having me on this video.
The 3 hardiest fish I see in the hobby. I'm definitely going to start out with betta fish. They're definitely probably the hardiest fish out there, the domestic ones at least. They can, stand lots of different water parameters. They can stand even, certain levels of ammonia and things like that that other fish can't handle because of the labyrinth organ that they have in their gills. But still, don't put your betta fish through that. Betta fish rule. But then also, I think another really good one would be like your Malawi cichlids. They can also stand some pretty harsh parameters and stuff. I've definitely put off water changes on some of my cichlid tanks a lot longer than I should have before, and never really had any issues with that. So I mean, these fish take a beating from each other all the time, and can put up through that. So they're definitely a pretty hardy fish. The Malawi one specifically, and maybe the Victorians as well, but not so much the Tanganyikans. Those fish can be a little sensitive, especially to changes in parameters. But then I think probably the number one fish that I always like to recommend as a hardy fish, especially for like beginners and stuff, would be mollies. These fish can go all the way to the ocean, into like your softer waters, like not necessarily too soft a water. They do like some minerals in their water for sure to really thrive. They can stand softer water, but they won't really breed in it. But yeah, mollies for sure are some super hardy fish. I saw one jump straight from a freshwater tank into a saltwater tank, and it continued to live just fine.
What's up, guys? It is your boy Scott from King Queen Cichlids, and I've been asked to give you my 3 top hardiest, most resilient fish in the hobby. But before we do this, I do want to thank the powers that be that brought all these great FishTube channels together to be seen by a larger audience. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Now, with that said, my 3 most resilient, hardiest fish in the hobby. Go to any Petco, any PetSmart, any family pet chain store you go to, we're going to see these 3 fish we're going to talk about. Number 1, the goldfish. Come on, guys. The goldfish has been around for hundreds of years. It is the go-to beginner fish for anyone getting in the hobby. And that's because they're hardy, they're easy to take care of, they love cold waters. You don't have to have a great filtration system. They're pretty daggone resilient. Goldfish are my number 1 pick. Number 2, bettas. That's right. Go to any Petco, PetSmart. You're going to see bettas in these small cups. Know why? Because they don't need a large amount of oxygen. They don't need a whole lot of water movement. These guys have the unique respiratory system that allows them to breathe air outside of the water. Beautiful fish, beautiful finnage. Don't neglect them by keeping them in cups. Get them at least a 3 or 5 gallon tank, and you will love the betta fish for a very, very long time. Last but not least, you guys know I'm the king of cichlids. I love my monster fish. I always tell people who want to get into the hobby, get yourself an Oscar. Oscars are hardy, beautiful fish, personable, high immune system, can tolerate different pHs, can tolerate different water temperatures. Just a great fish. And again, much like the goldfish, you can feed them anything. And an awesome fish. This is Scott from King Queen Cichlids. That's my time. Again, thank you for this opportunity. Guys, enjoy this hobby. It is one of the best out there. Love, peace, and soul. See you guys out there. Bye-bye.
Joe from Joe's Shrimp Shack right here. We're going to talk about fish. So I am actually over at my niece's place, and she actually has, if you look at it, guppies. Guppies are super hardy. And they can live through everything. As you see, she has not topped off the tank in the longest time, so the water parameters do fluctuate a lot. She didn't know I was going to do this video, but I did. So I choose guppies as a very hardy fish. And you know what? Here's my favorite little niece right here. Say hi.
I topped it off last week.
All right. Second fish I would choose is a betta. So this is my niece's betta right here. Her name is A Nez. This is a Nez. This is another hardy fish right here. You can go in soft water or hard water. It is a top breathing fish, so it doesn't need that much circulation in there. It can be done in room temperature as well as having a warmer water. So that's my second one. The third fish that I think is hardy is goldfish. Unfortunately, my niece does not have any goldfish. She thought she actually had a goldfish cracker and she was going to bring that to me, but she didn't. But goldfish are super hardy. If you guys know anything that's happened in Minnesota, someone went over, took some goldfish, threw them in the local pond, and now there's about 5,000 of them. So goldfish would be my third hardiest one. So I got guppies, a betta, and then we also have a goldfish. All right, guys, thank you very much, and thanks for watching.
All right, so I made a boo-boo. When I read his original message, I could have swore he said the 3 of the hardest fish I've experienced in a hobby. So I did this video.
3 of the hardest fish that I've seen in a hobby. That's a hard one. I ain't gonna lie to you. You stumped me on that one.
But when I wake up this morning, I get this message.
What I should have told him was, too bad, you're going to get what you're going to get. Boom, there it is. Be happy with it.
But for the sake of the uniformity of the video, I'm going to go ahead and give my 3 hardiest. All right, so I want to apologize for all the shakiness. I had to do this in my car because, you know, I didn't want Biz to cry. I need a video.
Get off my video.
The
Disrespect.
3 hardiest fish in the hobby. I'm going to start off with Danios. This is the indestructible fish in the hobby that I think is a great beginner fish for people to start off with, even though that's not what I said in Jason's video. But anyway, Danios are a great place to start because they can tolerate almost anything, and they're beautiful. They're available in a bunch of different varieties, small, medium, and extra medium. There's none that are real big, but the giant Danios are as big as they get, and they're still not massive. But all of them have the same characteristics. They're 180 miles an hour back and forth in the tank all day long, so you'll definitely get that activity. They're beautiful, and I think you could raise them in a puddle of mud and they'd be completely fine. Next would be the Comet goldfish, and I don't even think I need to explain why. Have you seen the conditions that these fish are in at the pet stores? They're in the nastiest, scummiest, most gross tank in the store, and they're sold for $0.10 a piece, and it's really bad. And I think I've made it very clear in my videos how much I hate feeder fish, but you got to give it to them. These fish can tolerate just about anything, and whatever they have tolerated is going right into the belly of your fish that you're feeding them to. But anyway, don't feed feeder fish, please. Just and the last one, of course I'm going to say this, it's Oscars. Come on. I mean, listen, I'm going to tell you a story about Oscars that will just make this all make sense. I had one in a smaller tank. It was temporary on top of my daughter's entertainment center in a home that we were renting, hardwood floors, and it was sitting about 5 feet up off the ground. And I was moving, and I was going to be moving the fish into a bigger tank. I went to net that fish out, and guess what happened? That fish jumped out across the room and landed on the hardwood floors and was flopping around, and I was like, well, there went that fish. But nope, put him back in the tank, left him in there for a little bit, gave him some time, perfectly fine, like it never even happened. That same fish is the fish that I've told the story so many times was wrecked by a red devil, a set of red devils actually. That fish was brutalized so badly, I could not imagine it would ever come back, and it did. And it lived like another 3.5 or 4 years after that. So don't abuse your Oscars, but if you're somebody that maybe isn't, I don't know, what isn't the best fish keeper, Oscars can definitely tolerate that, but don't do that because they're sweethearts and I love them, and I'll be really mad at you if you abuse them. But if you do, they can take it. They're super tough.
What's up, everybody? This is Ricky from PB Aquatics, and I've been asked to give you guys my 3 hardiest fish in the hobby. We're going to start with number 1 right now. Number 1 for me would be the skirted tetra. The skirted tetra has a wide variety of temperature toleration, anywhere between 70 to the low 80s. They eat about anything, flakes, pellets, you name it, they'll eat it. Brine, shrimp, frozen foods, they don't matter, they'll eat it. You can put them with pretty much any other kind of fish. I got them in here with my angelfish. And I've had no issues. My number 2 will have to be the betta fish. The betta, however you want to call it, they can tolerate all kinds of water conditions. Heater, no heater. I got them in here with a heater. It's not good to have them in poor water conditions, but and my number 3 hardiest fish on this list would have to be the corridor catfish. Wide range of temperatures, anywhere between 75 and 82 in my experience. They're good for cleaning the bottom of your tank, all the leftover foods and whatnot. They're very hardy. So that's my 3 hardiest fish: the corridor catfish, the betta fish, and the skirted tetra. Hope you guys got something out of this. See you guys in the next video.
Hello everyone, this is Jason for Primetime Aquatics. So what are 3 of the more hardy fish out there? And I think this would really apply especially to new fish keepers or people who just want some fish that are going to live a long time. I think the first thing is we have to define what hardy means. In my opinion, a hardy fish is one that has been bred well, that doesn't have a lot of genetic defects, that can withstand changes in water parameters, even though as fish keepers we are striving to make sure that that doesn't happen. I want to be clear from the start, when I'm talking about fish that are hardy, I do not mean or intend to mean that these are fish we can just throw in an uncycled tank and they're going to be fine. At no point ever should we be doing that in our fish keeping hobby. We should be cycling our tank fully before we put fish in the tank. That being said, what are some of the hardier fish out there? I think there is a reason why goldfish tend to be a starter fish for a lot of people. And here I'm not talking about the fancy goldfish. I'm talking about just your standard comet goldfish. They don't require a heater in most cases, and they tend to do fairly well long term, provided you have the right size tank, which can be quite large when they get full grown. If you're into cichlids, the Mbuna cichlids tend to be very hardy, provided you can meet their water parameters. But we've had cichlid tanks that have lasted many, many years, Mbuna cichlid tanks, and they do quite well. On the more community side, we do like the platies quite a bit. There is a reason why you see them in so many pet stores, because they tend to be a fish that live a long time and be relatively free of genetic defects.
Hey there, I'm Josh from the Aqua Mate YouTube channel. 3 of the hardiest fish in the hobby. I reckon that the African cichlids, your sort of Lake Malawi cichlids, seem to be really strong, really solid. They do so well in so many people's different tanks. I feel like as long as you have the right sort of setup with like crushed coral sand or Texas holy rock and that sort of thing, the water parameters are pretty easy to get right. Found them to be pretty forgiving if you're a bit lazy or anything with water changes and that sort of thing. So that'd have to be a pretty hardy fish. Another one would be white cloud mountain minnows. I think they're really tough, really strong little fish. Early days when I was still just figuring out what I wanted with fish tanks and how big the tanks were gonna be, and also I was pretty young, so I didn't have the resources to just go and buy new fish and new tanks whenever I wanted. I tried a few things like guppies and some tetras and that sort of stuff, and I found that the white cloud mountain minnows, maybe it was just my experience, but I know they're tough little fish. Lastly, I probably have to say goldfish. I have seen more goldfish in tanks that are just not suited to them, but they just keep going, and people always come back with the excuses saying, oh, the tank's not too small, I've had that fish for 15 years or 10 years or 5 years or whatever. But the fish isn't really thriving, it's surviving and it's making do. That's why I always keep my goldfish in a 4-foot tank over here. But I think goldfish are, unfortunately, probably to their own detriment, they're a real forgiving and hardy fish.
Starting off at number 1, that's easy. My hardiest fish. Listen, there are 3 phrases that I've never heard throughout my whole entire fish keeping career.
My convict just died for no reason.
My convict got beat up.
My convict hides all the time, it's so shy.
So Number one, definitely the convict cichlid. They just tanks. They tanks. Second hardiest fish also has stripes, but instead of black and gray like the convict, this one's black and orange. That's the tiger barb. Tiger barbs are awesome little tank fish. You know, I mean, they don't really have issues either, and they're fairly cheap to get. You can find them anywhere. But you get yourself a tank with 6 or more of them in there. They're very active, they're very colorful, and they're not picky. They'll eat pretty much anything. They're all over the tank. The tiger barb is definitely a safe bet to get if you don't want to take a chance. Third hardiest fish that I know of in the hobby, that would have to be.
Third hardiest fish. Oh, hardy fish? That's a tough one. Dang. It's foggy out here. It's crazy foggy out here. Let me think. There's so many. Ow!
I can't believe this one totally passed me. That's the clown pleco. Listen, this little pleco you get for cheap, and the reason why I'm calling it the hardiest fish is because I've had them a couple times, and as soon as I put them in the tank, they actually disappear. I never see them. The only time I find a fish is when I'm tearing the tank down. But I've never had one die on me. I guess they come out at night. So while you may not see the thing, it's definitely doing its job at night. But yeah, I've never had one die, and they always pop up when I forget that they're in the tank. I always think they were dead, but no, they're alive. You might not want to get that fish if you want to see something, but it'll live.
So there you have it, an all-star panel of fish tubers for your convenience in one spot. It doesn't stop here. There's going to be more videos. Just look for the Simple Fish Keeping logo. And there you'll find a host of different fish tubers answering a question for your convenience. Do your own research. Go to your stores, check out everything you can check out, and get your aquarium started today. All of my fish tubers information will be linked in the description, except for Aquafoam. Anyway, go do it. Get your aquarium together. Check out the videos. Go subscribe. Go like. A bunch of these tubers. We out here for you, and we doing it big. All right? Nothing else to say, but the wet stuff is the best stuff. And I'm out.